Mack is shooting this, but he's going to participate because Upper St. Clair connection, Jim Render, winningest coach in the history of WPIL. You had my wheels spinning after we were talking about Mr. McKay, the young man out of Blackhawk who could maybe even go as high as 1 or 2 in the upcoming Major League Draft. Minnesota, about a month or so ago, was considering him number 1. Chris and I were talking off the air earlier today and before we shot a video. And I was thinking about you talking about Newcastle with me yesterday. And I mentioned about Joe Namath, his best friend being from Newcastle. His name is?
Hatchet Hassan.
Okay. So I've always wanted to do this with someone who has been at every level as far as watching sports. High school, college, and your time with the Seattle Mariners as general manager, director of scouting with the Pirates. Just say 5 or 10 of the greatest high school athletes, not professional, not collegiate, but high school athletes, in your opinion.
At that time.
At that time, at their whatever sport it was or wherever school it was.
I would say LeVar Arrington would have to be one of the top of all times.
North Hills.
Bruce Clark from Newcastle at the time, WPIL Player of the Year, and later went on to become an All-American at Penn State and a fourth pick in a draft in the NFL.
Namath?
Joe Namath, I guess you'd have to say Joe Namath. You know, I mean, he ends up being who he is. The basketball kid, the NBA basketball player from
Maurice Lucas?
Maurice Lucas would have there as well. You got to say Tony Dorsett. You got Mike Ditka.
Come on.
2 Aliquippa guys.
Beaver County knowledge over on the other side of the table. LeVar is one I'm glad Jack mentioned. I come from, or are we going all athletes?
All athletes.
Okay, so the Miller brothers, if
Yep.
we're going to talk hoops. And you mentioned Dorsett as well. I mean, Danny Marino is another one if we're going to talk about Pitt athletes. And I'm drawing a blank. McKeesport, Brandon Short.
Ooh, Penn State.
Yeah, Penn State guy. So, yeah, those are my 2 cents.
All right.
Okay, I'll say this too then.
Okay.
At the time, Terrell Pryor. Who did more than Terrell Pryor did on a football field as a high school athlete?
Could he have played in the NBA, you think?
I don't know.
No, okay, I've heard that.
I heard he was also, you know, we didn't see him at the time. I mean, our guy saw him, but he said he was a really
But here's the thing.
baseball player.
You got Wysick, obviously.
Loved
Manzio.
him. Loved him.
You had Norm Van Leer, Simi Hill.
Norman Van Leer, yeah.
And when you look at female athletes,
yeah.
think about some of those.
Yeah, we're not even...
Lauren Williams, Candy Young.
Oh, boy.
Swin Cash.
That's right.
Swin Cash.
Swin Cash. By the way, Seattle...
That's right.
Seattle,
Can you do
whatever they were,
before
girls basketball.
Before we go, and I'm going to let you guys go to work, but I just love shooting the breeze with you. Talk about how we were discussing McKay yesterday,
Yeah.
and talk about this young man. Chris and I, Chris, you can jump in here too. But this is significant. I asked Bruce Tanner on the air earlier today, has there ever been a baseball player from Western Pennsylvania who's gone number 1?
Number 1. I mean, there's only, you got to remember, only 1 a year.
Right.
You know, in any sport for that matter.
But in the history of Major League Baseball, number 1, Western Pennsylvania. Baseball.
Number 1 pick.
In Major League
No,
Baseball.
I can't. I mean, I can't think of one.
Okay.
I mean, even go back to, here's another one. How about this one? Richie Allen.
Wampum.
Go back to Wampum. How do you miss the basketball? You know, he was a great basketball player in high school.
But again, the coolest was Joe Namath.
Joe Willie was the man.
Okay, talk to me the McKay story.
Yeah, so I mean, Brendan McKay was a high school pitcher. A lot of people went to see him in high school, and you know, he had a price tag on him at the time that I remember correctly. Was that he was asking for $1 million? Otherwise, he was going to Louisville. And several scouts went in, liked him, thought he was pretty good. But you know what? To pay him $1 million, which was first round money, you know, low end first round, and that happens so often with high school players. They end up going to college, and then 3 years later they surface, and you look back and say $1 million would have been a bargain for that player.
Following him over the last couple of years, I mean, he's got to be top 5, I think, in the draft. And I think when you talk about guys from Western Pennsylvania area, maybe not number 1 overall, but first rounders, we've seen a guy this weekend and last weekend as well beat the snot out of his former team, Neil Walker, who was a first rounder taken by the Pirates. So the baseball talent, another guy that Jack drafted in Seattle, who's an Elizabeth Forward guy, Dan Altavilla with the Seattle Mariners now. We saw J.J. Hoover in the Diamondbacks bullpen this past week come in with Arizona, another EF guy. So the talent is there in Western PA, and I think Brendan McKay is just the best we've probably seen since Neil Walker.
All right.
The former first round pick by the Oakland A's, Tim Conroy.
Jack Zarinzik and me, Rob Pratte, just hanging out at the plant causing trouble. Have a great day, everybody.